Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farbach. Poland's Foreign Minister Ratislav Sikorski says the EU-India trade deal is far more beneficial than challenging. On Tuesday, after nearly 2 decades of negotiations, Brussels and New Delhi have agreed on sweeping tariff cuts and a new security partnership, widely seen as a hedge against pressure from both Washington and Beijing. Now, to talk more about what this deal is all about, we're joined by Shibani Mehta, research analyst, Control Risks. Good to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me, Sasha.
All right, so the Foreign Minister of Poland, Mr. Sikorski, said far more beneficial than challenging. I want to start with that. So if that's the case, why then these 20 years of negotiations? What was that benefit ultimately now that clinched this deal?
I think that cuts right to the heart of the deal. What changed wasn't that India and the EU suddenly resolved their fundamental disagreements. These talks have collapsed, specifically in 2013, over India's refusal to open the automobile sector. So that issue did not go away entirely. What changed is actually the conditions outside the negotiating room. Both sides now face punitive US tariffs. And when the cost of not having a deal exceeds the political cost of making concessions, is when you get movement. That's essentially what has happened between India and the EU. Mm-hmm. But there is an important nuance here. Trump's tariffs have accelerated the timeline, and this wasn't purely reactive.
All right, and also, I mean, if we said here, this Trump factor here, hedging the battle, really both sides, but India has traditionally played very much a role that is also seen geostrategic, still aligned in some cases with the global south, still dealing with Russia, also the European Union. Does this deal now, in your mind, does this reel in India closer to the European side, or is this just a strategic short term?
I think it does definitely bring India closer to the Western Bloc, as we call it, but without being limited by Western constraints. So India has very much been able to lay out its own terms and conditions, while also making certain adjustments on its side for the EU.
Mm-hmm. Also, you said there are certain fundamental differences. One was the automotive industry. I mean, a lot of those tariffs will now have fallen away. They were 110%, now down to 10%. I mean, the other areas, sectors, and industries here. But I'm just curious, I mean, who wins here precisely? Is this more now for the car makers? Is this more benefits for, is this a zero-sum game? Is it a win-win? Tell us a bit more about which sectors really are now standing out to gain from this.
Well, on the Indian side, the big winners are textiles as well as marine producers. Marine products so far face tariffs up to 26%, which have now been eliminated. And this is a segment that has a large employment incentive sector, so that gains immediate competitive advantage in the European market. You spoke about automobiles. That is a little more nuanced. There is a phased approach that has been adopted. So the tariffs will not be eliminated immediately, and the impact will be incremental.
Mm-hmm. Interesting word there, phased approach. I want to jump in on that as well, because this is interesting. Now, what we've heard now on the from the level of underlying head of the Commission, also Prime Minister Modi, like this is considered, I think, quoting here, the mother of all deals. So there's a lot of fanfare on this. But I'm wondering about the exact ratification here, because it's not quite done, is it? Tell us a little bit about, let's say, the next part of this, and the legal hurdles still that are ahead for this deal to actually come into effect.
Well, it would have to, of course, be approved by the European Parliament on the EU side. On the Indian side, it will have to be approved by the Union Cabinet. Which is highly likely because of the political support that the Bharatiya Janata Party, which forms the government in India, enjoys. Also, there has been a lot of public support, endorsement by senior ministers for the deal. So it is very unlikely that there will be major hurdles on the Indian side. What can be challenging on the political front, and I will get to the regulation part of it as well. On the political front, national and regional parties may oppose to sector specific liberalizations that can not block the deal entirely, but may affect the timeline of implementation. As when it comes to regulations, so Indian businesses and firms will be expected to match EU standards to show that they can adopt to international levels. That can take some time. Also, it will require a lot of capital investment on the Indian businesses front.
And how concerned, if at all, are you? I mean, if we're looking also at another major trade deal, which was also touted as being very, very strategic, was Mercosur and the European Union. Now, that was also signed, but also now stalled in the European Parliament. That was about a week ago or so, a little bit more. But when you hear something like that, how concerning is that on the Indian side, or generally all the sides, that this will stall and the same thing will happen with this deal?
I think what we're seeing here in India is that both sides are very pleased with the concessions that have been made and the adjustments that both sides have agreed to. I will say that in my understanding, this is not just a trade deal. It is a geopolitical hedge that has a tariffs schedule attached to it at the end. Both sides recognize the geopolitical importance of the deal. At the same time, I will not diminish the importance of the pharma and the dairy sectors in India. These are politically very important constituencies that can bring down governments. There was a major farmer protest in India in 2020-21, which forced reforms, which forced the government to roll back on reforms. So these are important sectors, but I think both sides have managed these sensitivities well, including recognizing that there are sensitivities on both sides.
You mentioned this. I mean, obviously there are many sectors here involved, but overall, generally, what is the mood right now in India from industry, if it's agriculture or anything else? How is this perceived in India? Is this seen as positive? Is it neutral? How are Indians reacting to the news of all this?
I think as Indians, we tend to be sort of positively cautious. So while, yes, this is considered a major political win for the government and all those that back it, I think the real challenge is the implementation. Like we said, the deal still needs to be approved, signed, and implemented. And after that, I think it'll be a 3 to 5 year window before the commercial benefits truly come to bear. So I think it's more of a wait and watch.
I mean, there were a lot of heavyweights on the European side present in India. And I think one thing I want to ask as well is it wasn't just economics, it was also defense. And there's this also historic agreement signed, the security and defense partnership between the EU and India. Tell us a little bit more about this and how that's going to be impacting also procurement, cooperation. What are we going to see in terms of tangible effects?
I think it is a big part of the EU-India engagement that is sort of being shadowed by the trade deal. We need to understand that the trade deal is part of a package along with the defense deal. And like I said earlier, the rhetoric is important for India. It brings India closer to the EU, making it a credible partner in the long term.
And you said the rhetoric is important, but then, as I said, like in terms of the tangibles here, I mean, we have also this safe mechanism, this loan mechanism that the European Union is pushing out. There's more demand for industrial capacity. The French are already investing, or rather selling weaponry to India. Is this now going to increase as a result of all this in your mind, or just stay the same?
More or less stay the same, in my opinion.
All right. So in terms of also looking back at the trade deal, I mean, as we said, there are some protected, sensitive areas. Let's say which parts, if we're looking at the Indians, looking at the Europeans and that market, were the biggest, let's say, things that they're looking forward to, certain products perhaps that are now accessible. Which tangibles are the Indians now looking for in all this?
Um, I think textiles and manufacturing definitely a big win for those sectors. They're going to see some immediate impact of the trade deal. Besides that, advanced manufacturing, green technologies, there is a lot of anticipation of knowledge sharing as well as some collaboration with European partners that will become smoother as we progress.
And also a question about manufacturing. I mean, a lot of these things will liberalize now, and there's certain European standards that will be expected of the Indians. Now, how prepared in your mind is India's manufacturing sector to this? Is it up to par, and what if it lags behind in all this?
Well, it's definitely going to be a challenge for the manufacturing sector. It's highly fragmented in India. There are multiple agencies responsible for quality check and as well as standardization. Different states have different rules that are governed by different governments. There are political interests which may clash. That being said, majority of the states in India have either a BJP government or a BJP alliance ruling them. So there is, in a sense, they're all looking in the same direction, but the level of implementation and the pace of implementation may differ across states. So that's definitely going to be a challenge.
And then also speaking of challenges, I'm curious, I mean, steel, I mean, with India being the second largest steel producer in the world, where is this issue going to go? I mean, I think this is going to probably cause a bit of headache for both sides.
Yes, I would agree. I think they've left it open-ended in terms of where steel is, and I think it's a smart move on both sides to keep some gray area, some room for negotiation, and to keep the conversation going.
Right, so a major deal announced, but still the details are there and probably will take a few months, maybe longer, depending on the political mood, on how this all is implemented. Look, thanks so much for giving us those insights. That was Shibani Mehta, an analyst from Control Risks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary. Goodbye.